You have been one of the most consequential lawmakers in the state when it comes to AI legislation. You proposed and passed SB 53, a Transparency in AI Act, among other things, protect whistleblowers, disclose safety incidents for AI models, requiring companies to publish their safety protocols. As you look back on SB 53, is it mission accomplished for AI regulation, or is it the best we could do at the time?
I think it's neither. It's definitely not mission accomplished, and I think we addressed one specific issue, ensuring transparency around safety protocols. We know that AI has so much potential to make the world a better place and brings significant risks. And all of the big labs have all gone all over the place and said we have safety protocols, we're testing our models, we're doing everything we can, but trust us, and we want to make sure that there's transparency, and then the whistleblower protections and the reporting of critical incidents. So it was a really important step, the strongest such regulation in the country, and other states are now basically cutting and pasting our work with permission. We encourage it, and Illinois went a little bit beyond where we went. We need to catch up. So it addresses an issue, but there are other issues that we need to address. So this is going to be a work in progress.
Speaking of the AI companies asking us to trust them, that was something that a previous speaker today, Yoshua Bengio, one of the godfathers of AI, a professor at the University of Montreal, he said that we should not be blindly trusting AI companies. Yeah, how much leeway should they have?
I agree with Professor Bengio, and we work closely with him over our 2-year journey. And of course, we want to make sure that these labs can succeed and that they are able to create products, models that ultimately make the world a better place, and that serve humanity and not vice versa. And so that means we should not simply say, let's trust them, they'll do the right thing, and we can just focus on other things. We need to make sure that we are verifying and that we have guardrails in place. Again, this is the basic thing, that we need to ensure that AI is serving humanity and making humanity better and more successful, and not vice versa.
So SB 53 succeeded one of your other proposed bills, SB 1047, and the governor vetoed that. And there were two elements to that bill. One was a kill switch for models that perhaps get out of control, and then liability insurance for AI companies that do wrong. What was unpalatable, maybe to the industry or to the governor, about those two ideas?
Yeah, so those were probably the two most contentious pieces. And we did a lot of work on that bill. We had a lot of changes around taking into account differences between open source and not open source, and other. We got a lot of feedback, and we made a lot of good changes to the bill.
Is feedback a euphemism?
Yes. Feedback and attacks, and it was the whole spectrum. There was a lot of constructive feedback, to be fair. But the core of that bill was that because you can already be sued if you create a model, like any product, that burns someone's house down or causes some harm, under just regular tort law, you can be sued. But what we created was requiring testing of large models before they're deployed, and if you do not test, if you violate the law, and then it leads to some catastrophic harm, huge harm, then you can be sued only by the Attorney General, not by anyone, just by the Attorney General, and requiring a kill switch. That bill, I mean, it was very healthy in the end, because I think we really changed the conversation around AI safety and the need for guardrails. And as the governor said in his veto message, the bill created its own weather system, and that is absolutely true. But at the time, and I have very thick skin. I come out of San Francisco politics, which we refer to as a knife fight in a phone booth. So I have very, very thick skin. but I was called a decel, a doomer, that I should be a fantasy writer, that these risks are all completely made up. They're just regulating math, all the things that were said in the discourse. And ultimately, 2 years later, we were right? And we saw with the release of Mythos and the testing that was done that these risks are not fake. They're not made up. They're real. And we have the ability to place the right guardrails. And we should not do what we did with data privacy and social media, which is just to do nothing. It's 2026 and there's no federal data privacy law. There's basically nothing on social media other than protecting them from lawsuits. And we've seen the problems. And this technology is significantly more powerful and bigger and going to have way more impacts. And we should not repeat that mistake. And it's not about shutting it down. It's about making sure we understand the risks and we get ahead of the risks. And again, making sure that AI serves humanity, not vice versa.
Well, do you think that the public sentiment around AI and the legislative consensus around what these bills should include are changing? For example, earlier today, Emily Chang mentioned the wave of anti-AI sentiment in polling and the booing of graduation speeches. She called it a hate wave. Yeah. Do you think that some of these ideas that were rejected 2 years ago are maybe now more in the mainstream?
Absolutely. And you look at, there's even potentially movement in Congress. Now, we want to make sure it's not movement with a limited regulation and a broad preemption. We have to guard against that. But I think the politics have completely shifted here. And so 2 years ago, when I was being called a decel and a fantasy writer, I don't think that would be the case today. People might agree or disagree on different things. And even on SB 53, we didn't have, other than Anthropic, we had no support from the larger tech companies. And there was one in particular that was sort of quietly really not loving it.
I'm going to guess that's OpenAI, but you can be discreet.
And I will leave that for your speculation. And now we had the Illinois version of SB 53 with an audit requirement, and I think OpenAI and Anthropic both supported it. So and so there's been a real shift, and I will say, it's not to bring politics into it, but running for Congress now this year, I get to hear what's on people's minds. And when you're a candidate, when you're an elected official, you hear what's on people's minds. When you're a candidate, you really hear what's on people's mind, which is great. It's very healthy for democracy. And AI is probably the most common question that I get asked about. Like every house party, every event, on the street. And people are asking, not in a confrontational, this is what you must do. Which is often the case, I think this and I want to make sure that you agree with me. It's very much open-ended questions. There's this issue, a lot of jobs might go away, there are safety risks, we have deep fakes, we have chatbot issues with kids. What should we do? And people honestly, they know there's an issue, they know government needs to do something significant, and they often just don't know what it is, and so they're asking me. And that, I think, shows how the politics have shifted. And then the last thing I will say is, when SB 1047 was pending in 2023, with all of the opposition to it, there were multiple statewide polls in California, including one that was conducted collaboratively by supporters and opponents. They all showed support pushing 80%. So in the public, this is not controversial.
Well, and because it is on people's minds, there are a lot of ideas out there right now for how to regulate AI, and I want to get your take on a few of them. So if you are elected in the fall, Senator Bernie Sanders becomes one of your colleagues. He has proposed two ideas. One is a data center moratorium, and I know some states like New York are also considering that. Good idea or bad idea?
So I don't think a moratorium is the way to go, and we also, but we need real regulation to make sure that the public is not being harmed by data centers. Sometimes the data center conversation happens exclusively in the context of AI, but as I say to people, if you want to go to whichever search engine or AI tool you use, go and ask to list all the industries that rely on data centers. It's a massive list. frequently having nothing to do with AI. And so I don't think a moratorium is the way to go. With that said, we do need good land use rules on it. You shouldn't be able to put data centers anywhere. I'm not a fan of like surrounding a town with data centers like we've seen in some parts of the East Coast. And data centers should absolutely not be putting strain on the electric grid. And so whether that means generating their own energy or helping upgrade the grid, they should be paying for their own usage and not be jacking up people's costs because they're putting that strain on the grid. And same with water. We should find a way to, whether it's recycled water or whatever the case may be, we can put good rules in place for data centers without putting a moratorium in place.
Another idea he's proposed is the U.S. government taking a 50% ownership of AI companies. My understanding is to fund a sovereign wealth fund, perhaps in part to ease some of the dislocations that might come from AI. 50%, there might be some people in this room that think that's high, but is it a good idea?
Yeah, so a sovereign wealth fund I think is a reasonable idea. 50% seems pretty high, but I think the bigger picture is when you look at polling in Europe and the US around AI anxiety, it's much higher in the US than in Europe. And that's a very easy explanation because in Europe, they actually have a real safety net. If you lose your job, whether it's because of AI or for any other reason, you're still going to have health care tomorrow. Your kid's still going to have health care for their asthma. You're still going to have income support. You're still going to have child care for you're not going to become destitute. And that is an indictment of the U.S., frankly, in terms of the lack of a safety net, which Donald Trump has made profoundly worse in his attack on anyone who's not super wealthy. And so we need to shore up that safety net. That's why I support Medicare for all, and we need to have true universal income. Universal health care. You should not, your health care should not be connected to your job. It's a dumb system that we have in this country. It harms people. And we should have true universal health care and universal child care and all of the, we should have more robust unemployment. We did that, unemployment insurance. We did that during the pandemic, and it worked out well, longer and more. And you give people, when you have that safety net with income and health care, et cetera, if their job does disappear, they will then have the space to be able to figure out what's next. And maybe that means going back to school or taking classes or whatever, or trying to start a business, whatever the case may be. They will have the space to be able to figure out what their next step is instead of being out on the sidewalk the next day. And so whether that is through, I've been public, I support using tax policy, not just on the AI labs. If you're an industry that is now benefiting tremendously from AI because you are reducing your headcount, there should be taxation to compensate for that, to help us with the safety net. Whether you do it that way or through a sovereign wealth fund, I think there are different ways to do it, but we have to do something.
Well, is it more important to shore up the safety net or protect workers from being dislocated from AI in the first place?
Well, I think shoring up the safety net is incredibly important beyond AI. In terms of protecting workers, I think there are things you can do to, you're not going to stop technology, but there are things you can do to, for example, prolong it. Like we have a bill that I voted for twice, the governor vetoed twice, to say for autonomous big rig trucks that you have to have a safety monitor. We have millions of people in this country who drive trucks for a living. I don't want to see them all have their jobs evaporated overnight. So should there be a period of time when there has to be a safety monitor? I don't think most people in the public probably would want a safety monitor, at least for a while, for big rig trucks that are going to be on our roads. The industry doesn't like it, and I understand why they don't like it, but to me, that was a reasonable approach. And so I think we need to look for various ways not to stop the technology, because that's not going to work, but to sort of extend and cushion the blow and give people space to be able to figure out what is next for me and my family.
Okay, well, somehow we're already short on time, and I wanted to get to a few other things. If you get to Washington, do you plan to extend your leadership on tech issues to the Congress? And also, do you think that the government should take a look again at competition laws? It's been very quiet for the last 2 years, particularly as they allow the tech giants to extend their dominance into this next wave of innovation.
Yes and yes. I will absolutely focus on tech policy. I think it is incredibly important, and that will be, among other things, a focus for me. And I also believe that there are more and more, particularly, not only there are long-term members who are fantastic on tech policy, but newer members who are coming in and who really, understand the need for significant change. And I think there will be opportunities, and so that'll be a focus. On competition, yes, and I actually had a bill this year. It was SB 1074. It was an unfortunate number because it was just 1047, but flipping the 7 and the 4. So it probably triggered some people. But it would have banned self-preferencing by the big five. Some of the practices that Google, Meta, Apple, Amazon, and Microsoft engage in are pretty outrageous in terms of screwing over mid-size companies and startups. And it ends up harming consumers and innovation. And so we worked with a big coalition of startups led by Y Combinator, along with consumer advocacy organizations like the Economic Security Project, to advance this bill. We got it out of one committee. Big Tech is really powerful, and they killed it in the second committee. I know there's been efforts in Congress, bipartisan, to advance that kind of law, and I hope that happens again.
Last question. How much AI are you bringing into your day-to-day life as a legislator, as a candidate, and in your personal life?
I use it to try to figure things out for myself, and I increasingly do the whole back and forth, because sometimes the first answer is clearly garbage, and if you keep pushing it and go back and forth, maybe it gets a little tighter and a little better. In terms of in the legislative process, I don't think it's being used that much, and I've thought about taking text from a bill and feeding it in and saying, tell me all the weaknesses and loopholes in this. I think we probably should be doing that. I'm sure I know there are advocates that do that. It helps them figure out what things need to be tightened. But I think in government in general, we're probably a little bit behind the private sector on this.